Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to go over the complete history of the Philadelphia Eagles, including several intriguing facts that you've never heard of, including the time when the owner of the Steelers and the owner of the Eagles just traded organizations just for fun. Before I get into it, I don't have any sponsors, unfortunately, so if you could just like and subscribe, but let's get into the video. To get a full picture of the Philadelphia Eagles history, of course, we have to start with a completely different team, because no one's history just went in a straightforward line. It zigged and zagged and went all over the place. So it started off with the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets. They were founded in 1899. They won a championship. They were great. However, of course, early 1900s, football was not that profitable. Part of the reason football wasn't that popular was there was something going on in the 1930s known as the Great Depression. Of course, if you haven't heard of it, the whole United States economy and really the world economy was doing absolutely terrible. So you don't really have money to spend on football. So the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets went out of business in 1931, partially also due to a fire. A few years after the Yellow Jackets went out of business, two guys said, hey, we don't have an NFL team anymore in Philly, and we need one. So in 1933, Bert Bell and Lud Ray bought the rights to have an NFL team in Philadelphia for, wait for it, $2,500.
Way to go, dude. I can't believe you pulled it off.
And if you go, oh, inflation's crazy, you know, it would be so much money today. It's actually $51,000 in today's money. So it was pretty cheap. And if you can go back in time, I would probably suggest buying one of these early NFL teams. Can make a pretty penny since they're now worth several billion dollars. But anyway, in 1933, when they bought the rights to the team, they did not want to pick up where the Yellow Jackets left off. Instead, they wanted to just make a new team. They made the Philadelphia Eagles in 1933, and the eagle is not from America's bird or anything like that. It is actually from the Blue Eagle, which is located on Franklin Roosevelt's National Recovery Act symbol. So not quite the eagle that I was picturing before I looked into this. The Eagles did not start off their history with a very hot start. In fact, they lost 56-0 to the New York Giants in their first game. And honestly, it didn't get better for a while. 2 years after the Eagles were founded in 1935, their owner, Bell, did come up with the genius idea to have a national college draft to equally distribute the talent amongst the league. And this is why the league is as great as it is today. He was thinking, hey, I'm just not getting any good young players, and I'm a really bad team. Maybe we need to change things, force some parity around the league. The league agreed, and it has worked phenomenally. So in 1935, they started the NFL draft. However, at this point, the NFL still made hardly any money, and not quite the NFL draft that we have today. So in 1936, the Eagles had the first overall pick, and they traded it away to the Chicago Bears. However, the person that was drafted was Jay Berwanger, a Heisman Trophy winning running back, and after he was picked by the Bears, he said, no, I don't want to play football, I'll go to med school instead. So, good trade there. A few years went by, still honestly not much happening, just a bottom tier NFL team at this time. In 1939, they did get their first decent quarterback with Davey O'Brien, a quarterback out of TCU, and they had the big news of being in the first televised NFL game. And if you can hardly believe, like, is it millions, hundreds of millions? How many viewers was it? Well, it was estimated to be 1,000 viewers, not thousands, but 1,000.
I have to admit, I didn't see this coming.
And if you're like, oh, this has been fairly standard NFL history for a team so far, this is where it's about to get extremely unusual. And that is because in 1940 and 1941, there is what is officially known as the Pennsylvania Polka, which is one of the most ridiculous NFL ownership stories that I've ever heard of. In December of 1940, Art Rooney the owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers. You probably know him. The Rooney family still owns the Steelers. But he sold his share in the Pittsburgh Steelers to Alexis Thompson. So he sold the Steelers. It's gone. And with the money that he had got from selling the Steelers, he bought half of the Eagles. So now Alexis Thompson, a New York man, someone who lives in New York, owns the Steelers. Art Rooney and Bell own the Eagles. After the sale is made, the owners of both the teams, Thompson and Burt Bell, Art Rooney, pool the players together between the two teams and have a little draft just amongst two teams. However, a few months after this happened, Art Rooney got tired of driving from Pittsburgh to Philly to Pittsburgh to Philly. This is back in the day, slow cars, no airplanes. He just got tired of it. He said, actually, you know what? I would really like a team in Pittsburgh, not in Philly. And Thompson, at the same time, was thinking, hey, I would also rather have a team in Philly than in Pittsburgh. So in 1941, the owner of the Eagles, Alexis Thompson, and the owners of the Steelers say, hey, you know what? We will trade our franchises, and you can have the Steelers, I'll have the Eagles.
These are our demands. This is what we want. Our balls are in your court.
I didn't want the other team anyway. So in the weirdest situation, they just traded teams between owners. And this all happened in the offseason of the NFL. Didn't even miss a game. After the teams were traded, mishmashed, all this weirdness happened, they went on to just have another losing season for the Eagles in 1941. Then in 1943, everybody's fun fact that honestly is just not that fun is the Eagles and the Steelers were both kind of low on players because of World War II. So they made the Steagles, they combined the two teams, and they actually had a winning season, which was a really big deal for both those teams at that point. But that just lasted 1 year. Then they separated the organizations once again and did not combine again since. In 1944, the Eagles finally found some success drafting Hall of Fame running back Steve Van Buren. And the Eagles had their first winning season as an individual team in 1944. Then in 1947, they made the NFL championship game and lost. But then, the next year, in 1948, they made the NFL championship game and they won 7-0. So, pretty big deal. In 1949, the next year, they made the championship game for the third year in a row and beat the Rams 14-0. So 2 championships in 3 years, 3 in a row. Early on, they were a dynasty, even though it was the 40s, so no one really cares. To backtrack a little bit, in the offseason of 1948, after the Eagles' first championship game, the team was actually sold once again. So Alexis Thompson sold the team for $250,000 in early 1949 after the 48 season. And it was not sold to an individual, but it was sold to a group known as the Happy 100. And this was roughly 100 individuals around Philadelphia who pulled their money together and bought the team, centered around James P. Clark, who was the majority owner. In the years of ownership by the Happy 100, the Eagles had some really high highs, such as the first year, 1949, which, as I said, they won the championship. Then again, in 1960, they won the championship as well. However, they suffered some really low lows, and this was a really up and down era. In 1962, after only achieving 3 victories and getting dominated throughout the year, the remainder of the Happy 100 got together and decided they would sell the team. At the time, it was only 65 members remaining because it had been a little while, but they sold it to Jerry Woolman, a 36-year-old millionaire who was a developer, whatever that means, rich man. And he sold it for an extremely high value of $5.5 million. Waldman only owned the team for a few years. He only had it for 7 years, in fact. And in this time, they were okay and they were bad. They never really achieved the high heights, and this did involve the years of the formation of the Super Bowl. So these were some pretty formative years. Waldman decided to take advantage of his investment, sold it to Leonard Tost for $16.1 million, which was equivalent to over $150 million in today's money. Under Tost, they did move into their new big stadium, which was almost the size of the stadium that you think of today, and that was Veteran Stadium, or the Vet. In the 70s, the Eagles were okay. They had some hope. They weren't world beaters. They weren't the Steelers for sure. Steelers were definitely better in this era. And in 1975, the Eagles did hire their coach, Dick Vermeil, of course, Hall of Fame coach. And he would go on to not only coach the team with Ron Jaworski as quarterback for several years and have the first miracle at the Meadowlands, but also make it to the Eagles' first Super Bowl. They were favorites going into the Super Bowl against the Raiders. However, they lost 27-10. Throughout the 80s, the Eagles had moderate success on the field. They had some very promising years. However, as we all know, it didn't end up turning into anything. In 1985, once again, the Eagles owner did sell the team. This time, Tost sold the team due to very large gambling debts. A nice 1980s reason to sell your team, but he sold the team due to his gambling debts to Norman Brahman, who owned the team for 9 years. During the Brahman era, there were some really good years, and of course there were the Buddy Ryan years, which all old school fans of the Eagles love. You listen to anything, everybody talks about how they loved Buddy Ryan as a coach, as a man. But even with some great coaching, some great talent such as Reggie White, they once again were not able to win it all. In 1994, Jeffrey Lurie bought the team, a man from Boston, of course the owner of the team now. He had been a longtime Patriots fan, tried to buy the Patriots early on, loved all sports Boston, but he saw the Eagles were up for sale, and he had a few $100 million just sitting around, so he decided to buy the team, and he is now known as one of the best owners in the NFL. Shortly after Lurie bought the team, he hired Ray Rhodes to be the coach, and while Ray Rhodes was okay, I guess, he wasn't that good, and as we know today, Jeffrey Lurie is not okay with that, so Rhodes was fired after just 4 years. One big notable change to me, at least, during the Rhodes and early Lurie era was they did a huge rebranding, which some fans love. I think most fans probably love at this point, and they moved from Kelly Green to Midnight Green. They changed the helmets, they changed the logo, they changed it all. Complete rebranding of the team, other than, the name and the location. But to me, the Midnight Green era really kind of symbolizes the golden era of the Eagles because of all they have accomplished since it occurred. In the offseason after firing Ray Rhodes, Jeffrey Lurie determined, hey, I'm not going to hire another defensive coach. I want an offensive coach this time. And he ended up hiring Andy Reid, who was a no-name coach at the time. He was the Packers quarterback coach. He was not the Packers offensive coordinator, but quarterback coach. And this was one of the best coaching hirings ever. Largely because Andy Reid is one of the best coaches ever. And he accomplished that with the Eagles. He was there from 1999 to 2012. He made it to 4 straight NFC championship games. He made it to the Super Bowl where he lost to the Patriots, unfortunately. He had Donovan McNabb for most of his career. Turned out pretty well. Not as good as it could be, but a very, very solid quarterback. And was extremely beloved throughout the Eagles fan base. However, he was never able to make it over the hump, never able to deliver the first championship to Philly. Even though Andy Reid was a phenomenal coach, Everyone is loved around the league and respected. Towards the end of the late 2000s, Andy Reid's teams had kind of lost their luster. The teams were kind of drying up, not hitting as well as they used to. In 2011, I would say all of this kind of came to a head with Vince Young calling the team the Dream Team. This was the team that was supposed to bring the team back to their old ways. However, they were just 8-8 and were a humongous disappointment, followed by a 2012 team, which was just an utter collapse. And then Andy Reid was fired. And at the time, and even looking back, I think everyone can agree, yes, Andy Reid was a great coach, but also, yes, he had to get fired. It just wasn't working out anymore. And of course, it's worked out for Andy Reid, but it's also worked out for the Eagles. One thing I have to mention to get a full picture of the Eagles' history is Howie Roseman, because, well, we all love him, we all know him as one of the great general managers in the NFL, and he's been with the Eagles for a long time. So he was hired in the year 2000 as a front office intern, and he slowly worked his way up through the ranks over the next 25 years. He's extremely well liked around the city, around the team, and well respected. In 2010, when the rest of the team was falling apart, Howie Roseman did make his way all the way up to general manager, and he survived several coaching changes that is a little rare for a general manager, including in 2013, the year after Andy Reid got fired, the year that Chip Kelly became the coach. Well, Chip Kelly had a decent year in year one and said, hey, I want total control of this team. So he shoved the general manager, Howie Roseman, in the corner and took control of the draft, free agency, of everything. And, well, Chip Kelly crashed and burned. But Howie Roseman was just sitting in the corner and he was learning. And afterwards, he came back as general manager. And after Chip Kelly left is when Howie Roseman really exploded as one of the best general managers in the NFL and has built several amazing teams in the years since. Of course, as we all know, after Chip Kelly was fired, Doug Peterson took over with Carson Wentz, and, well, they ended up winning the Super Bowl. Nick Foles, you know that whole story, so I won't get too far into that. But then shortly after, there was collapse. It just didn't work out. His luster was gone. He got fired just a few years later. Everyone thought maybe the hope was gone, but then Nick Sirianni comes, 2 Super Bowl appearances and a Super Bowl win, and he has the second best winning percentage of a head coach since John Madden. So it's been going pretty good, and we are pretty clearly in a golden age of Eagles football the past 20 years. So that's kind of the whole complete history. As far as I can tell, I think I covered every major thing that is possibly needed to know about the Eagles' history. But if you have any other fun facts about the team, leave it down in the comment section down below and subscribe for more content.